Okay, so welcome to this new series. It's an interview series I've been wanting to do for a very long time, and I thought someone that I've known for ages would be the perfect guest for me to interview. Please welcome one of my favorite guitar players, Mr. Ehsaan Noorani. He's been part of Shankar Ehsaan Loy for more than 20 years, I think. He's been
25.
playing 25, amazing. And he's been playing the guitar ever since was a kid. So I've like known him since that age as like a guitar player to look up to. I've learned so much from him, about gear, about just the blues, about guitar players to listen to and stuff like that. He's been really helpful to the guitar community on Instagram, and I thought this would be like a really good, fun interview. So welcome, Ehsan, to the
Thank
first.
you, Warren. It's an honor. It's an honor to be the first guy, man. Really, really.
The honor is all mine, Ehsan. So let's get right into it.
Mhm.
Like people, they start interviews like asking you like, how did you start playing guitar and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah,
So I thought I'll give it a bit of a twist and ask you like a bit more specific questions. Uh,
yeah. Okay.
so when you started playing guitar, what was your favorite band at the time?
See, definitely when I started playing, it was Deep Purple, because
Deep
that's what
Purple.
was really influencing me at that time.
That's cool,
Like the
man.
first song that I learned how to play was Smoke on the Water.
Wow.
And let me tell you, I played it completely wrong. First chord I learned was D, like an open D. So I used to take that open D and move it up a minor third and up again to play Smoke on the Water. So you
Wow.
can imagine like a major chord. It was completely wrong, but it felt cool, man.
Yeah,
It really felt,
that's the thing. You get that instant payoff, from learning to
yeah,
play something that you like. So that's
yeah.
cool. My one of the first things I learned was Black Knight. So,
Oh wow,
yeah,
that's a great riff to learn
yeah.
first.
And apparently they got it from Ricky Nelson's version of Summertime.
Yes, you shared it on Instagram
Yeah,
on WhatsApp,
yeah,
and I remember hearing that. Yeah, yeah.
pretty cool. Okay, so how long did it take you from starting to play guitar to playing your first gig? How long was that period?
But actually, I started playing just before the 10th standard. Like, so I'm talking about 1977.
Mm-hmm.
With Bismarck Rodriguez. You heard of Bismarck
Yep,
Rodriguez, right? He's like the teacher who's taught I don't know how many people, and he passed
totally.
away a few years
Yeah.
ago at the age of 92. And basically, he taught me scales and this and that and whatnot. I'd keep like doing that stuff till finally I was like just about okay. I started playing blues and I was playing the blues scale and stuff like that. Then he had his son wanted to form a band, Chris,
Right.
with guys from Santa Cruz around where they stayed.
Mm-hmm.
And they called the band Pegasus after the Allman Brothers song
All right.
because all of us were like Allman Brothers fans. So that was the first band that I joined. It was called Pegasus, and there was Chris. There was a drummer called Claudia Branches who sadly passed away due to COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was a bass player called Kenneth Alfonso who also sang,
Mm-hmm.
and there was Chris's one sister called Cyrilla who sang, and there was Maureen who played piano, a very good piano player, and she's a really good teacher as well. So that was like the band, and I was like there was practically family band, and I was like the outsider. But we did good stuff, man. We did Foghat, we did the Allman Brothers band,
Cool.
and that kind of like Memory of Elizabeth Reed and all at that time.
The string
You're
harmony
talking about
stuff.
yeah, like 1980, 81, around
Yeah.
that time.
And there's that
And
that cool diminished run that happens and everything. It takes a bit of,
yes, 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 yes.
practice to
Yeah,
get
I
that all
know.
that down.
And the first gig that we played was there was a little restaurant just opposite Juhu Beach called Kitchen.
Okay.
And Kitchen, there was a friend of mine who worked there. And in fact, that's the first one of the first gigs I saw there was Crosswinds, which is Sanjay's band at that time. And the first gig that we also played as Pegasus was in the same place.
Okay.
So, I remember, Anil, my friend, made up a poster out of like poster paper with a horse on it with wings. And that was like the logo. And we performed and it went down really well, man. It
What
really went down well.
what year was this?
This would have been I think late 1980.
Okay. So you were
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
quick off the gate, like 3 years from when you
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
started playing
Yeah,
into
yeah,
the
yeah.
gigs.
Absolutely. I
It's
mean, I
awesome.
learned the blues scale, and after you learn the blues scale, you're a god, with overdrive. But anyway, no, but it was not bad, man. It was not so bad, yeah. And then we played for about a year, and I think 1981 we did IIT Mudai. We played in Mudai, and we went down so badly because we were playing stuff. IIT at that time, you're talking about hardcore. IIT was pretty hardcore compared to what it is now.
Yeah.
Mudai went on the whole night. You finished at 6 in the morning.
Yeah, I've heard some
And
legendary stories.
yeah, we got heckled like mad, man. I mean, here's an audience who's into purple and that kind of stuff, and the usual cocaine and that kind of thing. And we're playing In Memory of Elizabeth Reed and Revival and all that. I mean, the audience couldn't handle it. So that was a depressing time. And that is the last gig I played with them.
Okay. the very first time we played Mood Indigo, it was the Elms, and we were supposed to play 3 songs, but after 2 songs, the judges told us, please leave. I was like, I guess everyone's first experience at Moodai was, it was like the trial of fire, right?
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's so funny that venue, the Amphitheater, has so much history dating back to like even before your time. And it's quite sad that, gigs are not held there anymore. They've got this open field that they do the gigs in now.
Yeah, actually, but the days when we performed, it was like it was in the big ground. I mean, it was like the open ground. And there was not a very big stage. It was like kind of a medium-sized stage. And the people were very intimate. It was everybody sitting around with bonfires and other kinds of things burning, which I can't mention. But, and I remember those gigs used to be freezing. I used to like freeze because it was so cold at that time. In those days, without all the concrete and stuff.
It's out in the open, right? The whole campus.
Out in the open, and those were lovely.
What were the biggest gigs at that time? Like for us, it was Mood Indigo and Independence Rock. Just those two were like the biggest gigs.
Well, actually, I think at that time, Mood Indigo would definitely be one gig, which was very big. But there was no regular gig that happened. Gigs just happened every weekend. You could be playing at Sophia Baba Hall, or you could be playing at Xavier's College, in the Quadrangle. Or we organized our own show at Rang Bhavan.
Oh, nice.
And that was so easy, man. Roger Draco took $5,000 with transport. The police license cost some $300 or $800. Printing the tickets cost another $1,500, and you could do a gig, and you made about $4,000 from the gig, which was superb,
Yeah. I mean, it's funny you got Roger Drago for $5,000. We got Wilburn Sound at Raspberry Rhinoceros for $5,000, which was 2 PA columns, and you brought the rest of the gear on your own.
So those were like different days, actually. But that was the big gigs. I think Rang Bhavan was the first big gig that we did, which we didn't organize, but we played at that, and we were like the main band, and with a lot of publicity and stuff like that. And I remember because the first big gig that I was like quaking before the show because it was a big gig.
Yeah.
And when I looked through the curtain, just after we did sound check and all, there was nobody there. There's 4 people in the audience, and I was like really dejected. I said, "My God, man, that's terrible." Then about half an hour later, when I went and again I peered through the curtain, I said, "My God, it was packed." Rang Bhavan was packed, and I was so nervous. And the sound was being done by these guys called Hi-Fi Phonic, who you probably know.
Yeah, and the other guys. Yeah.
With all, God bless them. And we had some lights and stuff like that. And we started this tune with the first song was a Grand Funk Railroad song. I can't remember the name of the song, but it started with this riff, and the curtains opened, with all the smoke, like a spectacular opening. And then Sanjay went out to the mic and sang, and all the power went off. All the power went off. Everything. There was no sound. Yeah. There was no sound. There was no lights. Nothing. And the audiences at Rang Bhavan.
Yeah. Legendary.
So that was.
The funny thing is, I laugh at the fact that these days you have those MCs and all getting on stage and telling the crowd like make some noise. Like in our days, we had to tell the crowd like shut the F up so we can start the song.
Yeah, I know, man. So that was it. But the gig actually after that went very well. And I think that's when we really got a footing in the scene, that people knew of us. And the next thing we had gigs.
So Rang Bhavan was with Crossroads? Crosswinds?
Yeah, with Crosswinds.
And do you remember getting into Crosswinds? How did that happen?
Well, actually, I'll tell you what. I was going to Singapore in 1982. I was going with my folks to Singapore for a holiday. And I happened to speak to Sanjay because I wanted to buy some pedals, So I asked him, that any pedals that I should buy and all that. And we were all not very familiar with any stuff that time. Sanjay owned one Boss Super Overdrive, or the regular, the yellow one. and he owned an Ibanez chorus pedal. And so he said, "No, man, just go there and check. But can you do me a favor?" So I said, "Sure." She said, "Can you get me a set of strings?" So I said, "Sure." I got him a set of Ernie Ball Super Slinkies, which is what he wanted. And then when I came back from Singapore, I actually came back early because I had exams. Exams. My God, stupid of me. But it was like the right thing to do. I came back early and I called up Sanjay and I told him that, man, Sanjay, I've got your strings. How do I get it to you? He says, "Do me a favor." He's saying, "We're doing a gig at IIT on 2 weeks from now. So why don't you just come for the rehearsal, bring your guitar, give me the strings, and why don't you play the gig with us? Would you be interested in playing with us?" So I said, "Oh man, for sure."
Cool.
So I went and we rehearsed and we were playing like Leonard Skinner and Wishbone Ash and Lee Ritenour and a couple of Sanjay Divecha's originals. I said, "Man, this is really cool, yeah." And we did this gig at IIT, which went down really well, man. Went down like that was in the science lecture room. It was like one of the sloped
Okay.
things, one little theater, yeah. And we played there, and it was just gorgeous, man. And that's how we got into it.
Awesome.
And that's how I joined the band, man.
For those that don't know, Sanjay Divecha is an amazing guitar player. He's
man.
spent some time
Superb.
in the States as well, but yeah, one of the finest guitar players the country's produced.
Yeah, man, and he was really good then also, man. Like very precise. I learned a lot with the band, about like how to get a good rehearsal and keep doing stuff till you get it right. So it was pretty clear.
Were you writing a lot of your own material in those days?
Well, we'd written about 4 songs, and Sanjay had a couple of songs. There was an instrumental, then there was another song called Blue Skies. Then I'd written a song called Synapse, which is like a rock, kind of funk rock kind of thing, which actually used to go down very well. We wrote that. Then we written a song, Sanjay spent the night at my place. And in the morning, he used this. I had this imported toothpaste called Ultra Bright, and I remember his mouth that he caught fire because it was so spicy and minty.
Yeah.
He's saying, "Son, man, what is this toothpaste? I need to write a song called Toothpaste Blues." And we wrote a song called Toothpaste Blues, and which we used to perform. That was one of the other originals. So we used to do about 4 originals or 5 originals, and that was like pretty cool. Yeah.
And did you all ever record any of your material at the time?
No, man, not at that time. There was no home recording setup, and to record means you'd have to go and book Western Auto or something like, which in itself was scary.
I know that all too well. At that time, when you were in Crosswinds, what was the gap from then to you going to the States to study at MI?
Well, actually, Crosswinds went on till about 1984. 1985 almost. I think the last gig that we played was in early 1985.
I was 6
and
years old.
the lineup changed a lot. We had Sanjay playing, then Sanjay left Bombay and he went to Delhi to train with some catering, some pizza chain or something like that. And Jayu, our bass player, he was more getting into aviation, and he's a pilot even now. So he was getting into that. So they said use the name Crosswinds, and why not? So I said okay. Then it was me. Then there was Jayesh on guitar. Then there was Mark Selvin on bass.
Oh, so basically that almost was like an early version of Rock Machine.
Yeah, Rock Machine. And Mark Selvin on bass. There was Mujib playing keyboards.
Oh, keys.
And Mark Menes is on drums. So now you can imagine that was literally what became Rock Machine.
Yeah, 3 of the 6, I think. Yeah.
So we did 3 or 4 gigs that way, and it was a lot heavier. We got like playing Blue Oyster Cult and April Wine and that kind of stuff. It went down pretty well.
What Blue Oyster Cult songs did you all play?
We used to do Godzilla, and we used to do one more. We used to do We Gotta Get Out of This Place.
Okay.
It's an old song by the Animals, the Kings, or something like that.
Y'all didn't do Don't Fear the Reaper, right?
No, we never did that.
I was going to ask who played the cowbell.
No, then we used to do a little bit of Police and that kind of stuff. Then Sanjay came back, and we put the old band back together again. And we were like, it sounded really tight. And that time, then we took on, Kalyan, who was a drummer. We had 2 drummers playing in the band. We had Kalyan and Mark playing. And that was really interesting because it was like a Doobie Brothers kind of setup.
Right.
And so we did a couple of gigs like that. And then then I went off to America after that.
Okay. So in 85 you went to the States. Okay. And how long were you there for?
I was there for a year.
Okay. And
the course was only 1 year.
What was the most important thing you felt you learnt at MI?
Well, actually, see, the thing is that what happens is that when you go to MI, number one, I like I've said that before, you get face to face with your mediocrity, man. I mean, there are players, I mean, you know what it's like, man. That is like the mecca of music, you know. I mean, I met this guitar player, I remember, called Tal, and he'd been playing for only a year and a half. He was a young guy and he's playing for a year and a half. He knew every Steve Morse solo like by heart.
Wow.
He knew every Robin Ford solo by heart. You know, at that time, Robin Ford would run.
Yeah.
This guy was a killer player, man. I'm just saying, he said, man, you've been playing. He said, yeah, man, I've just been playing for 1.5 or 2 years. I said, oh my God. I mean, what kind of a player is this?
Yeah.
So anyway, that was the first thing. But the thing is that, you know, hanging out with so many musicians, you know, a lot of your learning is not in the classroom necessarily, but it's in the corridors of the school.
Yeah, it rubs off
Sitting
on
in,
you.
and you know, you're sitting and drinking a cup of coffee and exchanging something. He's saying, man, you know, I do this and I do that and whatnot. So that was so cool. And I used to always hang out after school because, you know, after school was when all these metal players would come out. You know, and you're talking about 1980s metal, which was really nice. I mean, you know all the music that Dokken and you know,
And
Rat. And
LA
all
was
that.
LA was the epicenter of that music. Like right at
Absolutely,
ground
man,
zero
absolutely.
at that time.
Yeah. So the thing is that, you know, you'd see these guitar players, they placed their, you know, the school had lab series and PV amps, you know, which was sponsored. And there were these little rooms, which are not rehearsal rooms, but like lecture rooms and, you know, practice rooms.
Okay.
So they had their pedal set up in the room and the amp turned up like super loud. They'd shut the door of the room and stand outside in the corridor.
Oh, okay.
On the opposite side, there'd be another guitar player who would be doing the same thing. And then these guys would be exchanging all those lovely two-handed and four-finger ideas and stuff like that, which, you know, one had heard on record, but you'd never seen somebody playing that, man.
Yeah.
And it was just mind-blowing as we hear these guys, and I was just totally enamored by the things that they did, you know. So that was the thing. And I think, you know, the one major thing that I learned from America was basically the way that you be a versatile musician of playing all kinds of styles of music, not being completely tied down that, you know, man, I'm going to only play metal or I'm only going to do this. You know, you have to be a professional working musician. That was like the biggest thing. And that helped me a lot, you know, in the future.
Cool. And then when you got back, it must have been like a culture shock back to India.
Man, really, it was just scary. I mean, I woke up in the morning and I said, my God, what am I going to do here? Literally, it's like, you know, I had no idea. You know, I remember Mahesh and Jayesh came over. Jayesh used to live in the next building and Mahesh lived like 5 or 6 buildings down, and they came over and they wanted to meet me, you know, come back from MI and, you know, this and that. I had my new Paul Reed Smith guitar and, you know, we were like talking about this stuff, you know. Anyway, and then they left and then I was like completely in a panic. I said, you know, man, I have to now do something. You know, what am I going to do? Just the next day, man, the phone rang. And if you remember our good friend Ronnie Desai, you know, he called up and saying, hello, Ehsaan, this is Ronnie. I said, hi, Ronnie, how are you? Are you interested in playing guitar for jingles? So I said, sure. So he's saying, I have a jingle tomorrow. And it was at that, I remember that time, Rajesh Javeri is in his house. He hadn't got a studio yet. All the gear was in his house. And I went there and it was a jingle for Paragon shoes or slippers or something like that. And I played guitar and I played bass as well. And I remember using someone's Ibanez bass, and I can't even remember whose bass that was. Anyway, and there were 2 jingles which I played on. And that was it, man. From there, I was into the jingle scene because Leslie Lewis had stopped playing guitar for other people.
Right.
You know, he was the guy at one point, and he stopped playing because he wanted to get into production and that kind of thing. So there was this space open for somebody who's like a more Western-oriented kind of guitar player, as opposed to the regular studio guitar players who were around at that time.
Yeah. It's funny like how sometimes these things, they just open up without you like actually actively looking for it. You know?
Really, man, really. It was really like fateful, really fateful.
And during the jingle period, at what time did you meet Lloyd during that?
Well, actually, you know, after I got back from America, Ranjit, Sanjay, Carl Peters and I formed a band that was called Mickey's New Home.
Right.
And there are a couple of recordings, I've got to find them. Anyway, and we were like at best described as a progressive pop band.
Yeah.
You know, we did, because we were very into what was happening then, like Go West and Level 42,
Right.
which was intelligent yet popular music, you know.
Yeah.
So that was like our direction that we took, and we used to songwrite and stuff like that. And basically, that music, when we did that, that was a lot of development that took place between the four of us.
Okay.
You know,
And I'm guessing most of y'all would have been studio musicians as well. I'm sure Ranjit was.
yeah, Ranjit, everybody, man. We did that for quite a few years, and after that, we split up because it didn't go down well after a point, and then Sanjay left off. To one second, I've lost the question here. I'm talking about the band.
No, you're talking about Mickey's new, but then I'm guessing somewhere during the jingle period, you ran into Loy.
Yeah. Basically, so at that time when we were songwriting, Ranjit happened to go to Delhi, and he was carrying a cassette of the songs that we'd written.
Okay.
About 4 songs that we'd recorded, and he played it to Loy, and Loy got blown away. He's saying, "Man, this is the kind of music I want to play," which is intelligent pop. And I remember Loy had a little 4-track system at home, and he dubbed his piano for one of the songs. Okay. It was a song called "Love Is Not Enough." Okay. I remember, and he played the piano on that. And Ranjit came back and said, "Man, check this out." And he said that, man, Loy is like the perfect guy for the band because he's hearing everything that we are hearing.
Right.
All the kind of parts that you would write and whatnot. And then he came back. He came back because of that.
Okay.
He's saying that, man, I can get back to Bombay, and I think, there's a great scope for me to do other stuff.
Right.
Stuff that I want to do besides all the commercial work.
Exactly, yeah.
And he came back, and Ranjit, of course, gobbled him up to do all, because Ranjit had just got into commercial work then and whatnot, doing jingles and all. And by that time, Mickey's new home had broken up.
Okay.
But that's how I met Loy. He came down to Bombay and I met him, and we sat and chatted, and I, immediately vibed with him. That man, he and I can really be friends and, get along musically.
Yeah.
And that was it. He came back in 91, and by that time I was doing jingles on my own. And he started working with me and working with other people. I started working with him. And it was a very, very, very beautiful experience because Loy, A, being the guy that he is, and number 2, being the musician that he is, man. He's got knowledge of
everything,
all kinds of stuff.
He's the encyclopedia.
Like an encyclopedia. And the experiences, with your brother, with your dad, with his brother, and with all the other bands that he played with, and the nightclub thing and all. He just learned so many styles of music, whether it was jazz or... The only thing was, Loy, when I met him, hadn't heard Dark Side of the Moon.
Wow.
He told me, Ehsaan, I've never heard Dark Side of the Moon. I said, man, I better, made a cassette copy for him. Yeah. And I gave it to him. I said, you better listen to it.
You were aware of his, the commercial stuff that he had done in Delhi before you met him?
Of course, man. World This Week. Yeah. That was the first time one got to hear something that was done on that kind of level, and that kind of composition,
right,
which was truly international in a way, the way he did it and stuff like that. And, we were really excited about Loy coming back to India, coming back to Bombay, because he was like, we were really excited about Loy coming back to Bombay because it was, you knew that there'd be new blood in the scene, there'd be a new musician to work with.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, actually a few people, I won't mention the names, got insecure that, man, he's going to come and take all our work away. Because he's so good,
Yeah, he's a scary. The thing is, like, every time he came down, like when I was a kid, he was in Delhi. So every time he'd come down, I'd like try to find a moment to, like, show me this on the guitar. And then once he showed me like my first rock and roll riff. Till then it was all chords, and I was like, oh, you can play stuff other than chords as well. So that was like, blew my little mind.
It's fabulous. It's fabulous. Even now, Loy and I, man, we sit and talk all the time. Music and all kinds of things.
So you and Loy, I'm guessing, worked a lot on commercial, like TV jingles and stuff like that before the first film happened. So that was
we were doing
8 or 9 years.
Jingles.
Yeah.
Easily, man. You're talking about 1991 to 1997. For 6 years, Loy and I were doing an average of at least 20 jingles a month.
Right.
Monday through to Friday, and of course we'd have breaks in between and stuff like that, but that was a lot of work. So in doing that commercial work together, Loy and I vibed, in the sense that, I could read his mind, he could read my mind as to what was needed where, and, what is the texture, and what was this, and what was that. Oh my God, he was just superb. Then, of course, the first break came when we got offered a movie. And then everything else changed after
I
that.
just want to back up a little bit. So during that time, because I know Loy is like a damn funny guy. So like, what is the funniest thing you guys have seen in the studio together? I'm sure there must have
I'll
been.
tell you, I mean, he's like a crazy guy. He was doing jingles on his own, and there was this guy who hassled the hell out of him about he'd keep bouncing this track of his. And when Lloyd picked up the phone and spoke to him, and I can't repeat what all he said, but that was one of the funniest conversations I heard. I was just holding my sides and laughing, and that guy just kind of gave up on Lloyd. Said, "Do what you want, do what you want." I mean, it was really funny,
Yeah.
man.
He's an easygoing guy till like something kicks him off, and then you better beware, at that
Yeah,
point.
and then once I remember he was joking around with this guy who was sitting in the studio and about his own film. It was a film for Hero Honda or something like that. And Lloyd comes in and starts making some funny comment about the film. And the filmmaker, I remember Vikram Oberoi, is kind of looking at Lloyd like, man, getting very uncomfortable. And Lloyd's joking with this guy about the film, about this and about that. And he was just joking.
Yeah.
He didn't mean it seriously,
Yeah.
man. He found out that was one of the owners of Hero Honda.
Hilarious.
Oh, God, that was so funny, man. That was really so funny. And Loy, I mean, all the time. I mean, there was things that he'd do in his metaphors. I mean, he's the king of metaphors.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is like all the time, man. In fact, it was amazing. It's become even more now.
Yeah. He used to make me do this thing with a crash, like you reverse the crash, so it fades in, and then you put another crash like a normal one, so that the waveform looks like a diamond like that. He used to call it Kaju Barfi. He's like, put that Kaju Barfi in this part.
Yes, of course. Damn funny, man. We still use that term, man.
Kaju.
We still use that term. Yeah.
For those who don't know, Kaju Barfi is a diamond-shaped sweet, very popular.
Diamond shapes.
Yeah. Okay, so then you'll get into your first film, which was, I believe, the one with Mukul.
Yeah. Thus. It's called Thus. Yeah.
And so how did the meeting with Shankar come about? Was that due to meeting him in your advertising line of work?
Yeah, actually, well, that was it. No, because we met Shankar actually through Ranjit.
Okay.
Because he used to work with Ranjit and he sang on that one Pepsi jingle with Remo Fernandez
Yeah, I
and all that.
remember
And there
that
was a
one, It's a huge
spectacular
one.
alap that came in. And that's, when people said, oh man, this guy's a really good singer. And he was very undecided about what he wanted to do because he was going to be a pretty successful software guy. He'd already got a great job with Oracle, in Los Angeles or in wherever, in California. But last minute he made that decision that maybe he should sing, and and he was working in the studios a lot. He'd suppose Lloyd would be doing an AV or something which needed some Indian kind of arrangements to it. Shankar would come and do it or come and sing, and that's the way it kind of developed. Then when we did those whole series of Dance Masti albums, starting with the first one, Shankar sang quite a lot on those.
Okay, yeah, I remember that. I remember that. So
Then of course there was Breathless.
the first time you heard Shankar sing, did you think like this guy is unreal? Like I haven't heard another person like this.
And actually, what was really unreal, I'll tell you one story, is that when he came and I was doing a jingle, I remember it's for Rasna Lemon Up, and the rap, it is written in rap in Hindi for Baba Sehgal, and the rap was like Maine piya papa piya na Rasna Lemon Up papa, which was cool for Baba Sehgal to do because that was his kind of style of doing that kind of rap. And then there were the language versions, There was the language version. Now the thing is that there was a Punjabi one which Baba Sehgal took quite a lot of time to do because it was a bit of a tongue twister. And then Shankar came in, there were 3 language versions, the South Indian one, which is Telugu, Tamil and Malayalam. And he came in and Baba Sehgal told him, man, Shankar, you're going to get jacked because the words are so difficult, Shankar came in, within 20 minutes, he had dubbed all 3 jingles and he had left. So that is the spectacular part about this man.
He's so
His
fast.
talent is in some other level.
Yeah. Our nickname for him used to be Chalo Take. because that's what he says. He comes into the studio only and like he doesn't want to warm up and all. He just like says, "Chal," because I used to keep everything ready, and I knew his levels and everything, so I would set it up. He would just come in and like the client was like, "What is he done?" I said, like, "Yeah." The client was like, "Oh, I thought you were just like getting levels and stuff." I said, "No, he's done. He's gone. Go catch him
He's
outside."
amazing. He's really, really amazing. I mean, even now, he's just something else.
Yeah. And luckily now that his kids also are taking over from, it's
Yeah,
cool
yeah,
to
yeah.
see it,
Also,
it's to see it carry on. Okay,
yeah.
so during till SEL, do you have a favorite thing that you've worked on or played on or something till you started doing films?
But actually, I was very happy. I played on Shankar's Breathless album.
Okay,
I played one song called Tu Paas Hai,
okay.
which I think is the third song or the second song on the album. And I remember at that time I was very into Dominic Miller because Sting had just was coming out with Soul Cages. All those albums that started coming out there, 10 Sumner's Tale. And Dominic Miller was like a huge influence, and he still is. I love his playing. And I remember all the parts that I played were very influenced by Dominic Miller.
Okay.
And then I played a solo with my Strat. I had a red American Standard Strat then, and I'm very happy with that solo even now. It had a very Stevie Ray kind of sound,
Nice.
and
I must
that was
check it out.
a really nice thing. You must check it. It's called Tu Paas Hai from the Breathless album.
Cool.
And the parts that I played with chorus and all that, it was really, I was very, very happy with that.
I remember first coming into Purple Haze, I think, I think you may have had that Sansamp rack or something, but you were getting like a
Yes, yes.
really huge sound, at least on the studio speaker, that just was like, oh god,
Right.
that's like a
Actually, I liked a lot of the stuff that I did on Jasmine Barucha's album, which I
Right.
did with Zubin,
I remember that one.
called Alien Desire. I think that's a great album, and the guitar was. I like all the solos that I played on that. I was very. In fact, I've never been able to play like that since then. I think the whole thought process changed. From that was that whole '80s chorus kind of rock,
Yeah.
and that I also played a lot of stuff on Gary Lawyer's album. And if
Okay.
you probably never heard that, there's an album called This Cannot Wait. I'm sure it must be on YouTube or something. And there were a couple of guitar solos on that, which I was very happy with. Very, very happy with.
I remember you did some stuff on Nandu Bende, Rest His Soul, his album, and there were a couple of really
Two
good
albums.
songs. Yeah, there were some really nice songs on that, because I remember Lloyd would come back from the studio to our place and then he would play me, oh, this is
Yeah.
what we did today. That was the first time
Yeah,
I
he
heard
had two albums.
fretless bass and all these
Nice.
guitar textures and stuff like that. Yeah.
There was an album of his, the first album I played on was an album called Disco Maza, which is also there on YouTube. It is like a non-stop, like Stars on 45 kind of thing, which Nandu did with the old song. That was very organized, man. He'd come with the charts written out of all the songs and stuff, and we'd record all the parts, and of course he'd splice them together later. But that was a big learning experience because it got me into learning what the Hindi composers and Hindi producers wanted, the kind of sound that they wanted and stuff, which of course with my own addition. So I managed to get like a fusion of that, which helped me a lot in my studio work with the other Indian jingle composers and stuff like that. Then the second album I played on was his solo album called Get Organized.
Okay.
And that is the one that Loy played on. In fact, there was a song there called Man in Jail or Man in Prison or something, which Loy played on.
Under Trial Prison.
Under Trial Prisoner. And that's the one I played a guitar solo on. I played on two songs.
I remember that song because that's the one Lloyd played for me. So like till now I still remember.
Yes.
Like I was like, oh man, this is like, like
That's
international
Under Trial
quality recording stuff. Okay, are there any really famous films that you've worked on just as the guitar player, not as the music director?
No, actually, I've worked on a couple of 2-3 film songs with other composers.
Okay.
And once with Kalyanji Anand, the film of his called what? It was called Hero Hira Lal.
I remember that.
I remember playing. There's one ballad on that which I played on, which was like really difficult to play because it was in the key of A flat, and everything that Viju Anand had written involved like these open strings ringing out, like completely like harping, like a harp kind of effect, and I couldn't get the inversions, man. I went to the studio and there was one more guitar player who was Ramesh Iyer. Very, very lovely, famous guitar player, studio guitar player of his time. He passed away last year, unfortunately. But he was the second guitar player and he hadn't come yet.
Okay.
So I was trying to get these inversions, man. So I was just like, trying to work out some muted part or just playing like, first and third or something. But Viju wanted that part, man. So I said, man, he said, wait for Ramesh to come. Ramesh came and, man, I've got to hand it to the guy. He found the inversion, man. Such good experience in the studio that, that he knew how to
Yeah.
find his way around something. And he showed me this entire inversion, which was superb. I mean, you can't really hear it up front because it's all mixed in with the keyboard and stuff like that.
Right.
But there's a very funny story from there, and because once we did the rehearsal outside, we went into the control room, and when I plugged in, I had my guitar plugged in, tuned to my Boss tuner, and I was not in tune with the string section and the vibraphone.
Oh.
But I told Ramesh, but I'm in tune with my tuner, man. It's like perfect. He's saying, I know that. He's saying they all tune to the vibraphone. And the vibraphone's got a natural ring, no? It's got an oscillation.
Yeah.
So the strings themselves are all a little out,
Auto,
and maybe that's what gives it the sound. So he said, do me a favor, pretend that you're tuning. So I said, okay. I did that. He's saying, now put your chorus on. He's saying, turn the depth down just a bit. I said, okay. And I did that. I said, oh man, this is great. They're in tune now. I said, Ramesh, but I'm out of tune. He's saying, just shut up and play. I said, okay.
Yeah. That should be the thing. You can't, because some guitars, it's hard to get them to intonate. And then, when you put the chorus pedal, you're never really in one particular pitch. It's just wobbling a bit.
Yeah, but that is the thing in the industry at that time. They all tuned to the vibraphone, and it was all live. No, I mean, like you played live.
Yeah,
there was no dubbing. Yeah. You went on to 2 tracks or 3 tracks or whatever.
No
really tough.
Brutal. No punch-ins. You just did it.
Really brutal. Very, very brutal.
Okay, so let's get a bit into your illustrious career with SEL. So, like you said, the first one you did was Das. And do you have any favorite songs or riffs that you remember?
Well, actually, there was the song called Hindustani, which is the song which became really big.
It's still played at like people just cover it till today. Yeah. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and that opening riff was actually composed by Shankar.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, man, I really struggled playing it because I mean, it's composed by Shankar. That's why, with that sense of rhythm and all that. First of all, even now I get nervous playing in front of him. But the way he wanted me to play the line, it was down, 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 and slide down, 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 and then at that speed, down, 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 down. I was like really struggling. It took me like a little while to get the perfect take. But that was very good. That was a very nice riff to learn. It was a lot of training for me, in the studio to do something like that, which sounded so simple when you hear it, but it's actually very difficult to play.
And I think shortly after that, you all did a Nagesh Kukunur film. I think it was Hyderabad Blues, I think?
Oh, Rockford. It was called Rockford.
Yeah.
His second film.
So that was like, how soon after Das was that?
Well, actually, thus the album had released, and then we were working on a film called Mission Kashmir.
Oh, okay, I remember that one.
Yeah. And during Mission Kashmir is when Nagesh said he wanted to do this single.
Okay.
He'd heard Shankar's Breathless, and because of the Shankars, so Shankar said, "I'll do it with Shankar Ehsaan Loy." Mm-hmm. And there's a song of this guy who's driving up to school and driving through the hills of Ooty and that kind of stuff. So Shankar said, let's use this scale, the rag called Rag Jog, which has a very bluesy kind of song. It's almost like a Mixolydian kind of sound, but it's also got a minor third and a major third.
Yeah, I remember this very well because I was there when you recorded this.
So basically, he sang me the scale, and I came out with that opening guitar part, which was should I play it?
Yeah, play it. It's a great.
Which was the
I know to play it.
Yeah, the opening guitar part was.
Yeah.
So that's the thing, and the thing is that the melody, the scale is.
Yeah.
So it's got the minor third as well, So
the thing I love the most is that in the chord voicing on the second part of the riff, where it goes.
Yeah, when it goes to A.
Yeah. No, even in the riff, you have like a nice with the fourth as well.
Yeah. Where I got that from? I'll tell you.
Yeah.
This part.
Right. Change the world, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Eric
yeah.
Clapton.
Sorry, I played it wrong the first time, but that's the way it is. So
Cool.
that's where I got the and of course I rephrased it.
I think your rephrasing sounds more memorable to me because I can hear that from a mile away. Um, I just want to say, like, during that time, I have a very interesting story. So, like, I was like a little kid. I think how this was early 2000s or something, or
This
90
was yeah, this was
late 90s.
no, this was 2000.
Yeah. So I was just
2000.
like 19 or 20 at the time, and Loy said, "You want to come at Purple Haze and hang out while we're recording this?" And all. Like, yeah, sure. I'd love to see a proper studio session, in
Yeah.
process. So I was this, fresh off the boat little kid who didn't know jack shit. I was sitting over there watching. I think you were doing a guitar solo and you got stuck at a moment. And
Yeah.
the funny thing is, like, I knew what you wanted to do. I think you were doing
Yeah.
some kind of an Allman Brothers kind of a thing. And
Yeah.
I just blurted out, you could go there. And it just like disturbed your concentration. And then I think everyone just left the studio room. And then Lloyd told me, like, listen, when someone's in the middle of recording, don't ever, like, get into their, don't disturb their concentration because it can be hard to, like, get back into that zone. And that's, like, one of the most
Yeah,
important lessons I learned, just as a producer.
you know how it is sometimes, like for
Yeah.
certain songs at least, like a song like Rockford, you've got a short solo section.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to just go and play like,
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
I didn't want to do that kind of stuff. I wanted to create something that sounded correct in the song and kind of memorable in a way, so you could quote the solo.
Yeah. Totally.
And so it was a bit of a struggle getting the right thing, but eventually I was very happy with what came out.
Yeah, it's one of the finest things I've heard you on record. I mean, I've heard you play other brilliant stuff just when we're hanging out and stuff, but like just on record, I can still hum out that solo. So yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot of Allman Brothers in that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And you did a
I
harmony on
was
the last
struggling.
line, right?
Yeah, I was struggling with the
Yeah,
last part.
yeah, yeah,
How to come out of the solo?
yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. And what is the name of that song? I know the melody perfectly. I know.
It's
Sorry,
called Asma Ke Paar.
awesome.
Asma Ke Paar.
I wanted to look it up on YouTube. And I was like, I can't remember the name of the song, but I know the guitar solo. Okay, so after that particular film, uh, till today, you guys are still like, the three of you all are going strong, which is amazing actually, considering, it's hard enough to get along as, musicians for, 1 week, let alone 20,
Yeah, I know.
25
Yeah, I know.
years. So, in that sense, I'm sure you've learned like a lot from both our friends, Shankar and Loy.
Yeah.
So, from Shankar, can you just share with us a little pearls of wisdom that you've picked up from him?
Actually, with Shankar, I've learned about, about always reacting to what comes out of you spontaneously. Never bounce an idea because I've got a habit of reacting immediately. So just let it breathe, let it develop. And the thing is with him, actually, Shankar, the biggest lesson to learn from him, musically, there's a million things that you learn from because he's such a brilliant
Yeah.
musician. But the main thing to learn from him is how positive that man is. There's never a day when he'll walk into the studio with a cloud over his
Yeah,
head. Never,
that's definitely true.
ever, never, ever. I'm more the moody kind of guy and whatnot, but when he walks in, always like bright and happy, and that kind of sets you up for doing something good. And he's so positive, and even with the music, just because of his attitude, that's very often you get ahead with the work when you're stuck.
Yeah.
You're stuck, you're not coming out with an idea, and he's just like, just he puts out that energy and it kind of draws
Yeah.
it out of you.
I was going to say,
So
like,
it's
I've
just-
seen him pull stuff out of people just by being in the same room with them.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I mean,
that's-
see how patient he is with singers, man.
Yeah.
He will never tell. See, the thing is, a lot of singers do struggle. We've had singers who've come in who've not been able to pitch even one line correctly.
Yeah.
Shankar will never say that or make a face or say that, man, look back at me with the talk back off, and tell me something, he'll always be positive about it and say, no man, that's a superb take. Let's try one more.
Yeah.
That's great. And he always does that, and eventually gets a really good, makes the singer so comfortable that the singer turns out a good performance.
Yeah. I'm guessing for singers also it must be intimidating singing in front of him, and he's like one of the best singers ever, so it's like
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of singers when they come in, they hear his guide track,
yeah.
and I think they start quaking from there only because he sung it so well.
Yeah. And from Loy, I'm sure musically there's a ton of stuff you and I have both picked up from him, but just in his basic temperament in the studio, it's like something to learn, from him.
Yeah, sometimes his temperament can be a little frustrating because very often he'll come into the studio and he doesn't even know what we're working on or what we worked the day before. Lloyd, we're working on this film. He said, what film is that? I said, this one's film, man. What song? So he said, no, but that song's from some other film. I said, no, Lloyd, this is from the same film. Please. He's very disconnected, which is actually good. Because he gets out of the studio and he's just got like a mind cleanse.
Yeah.
It's like erased everything, And I mean, of course, musically, there's just so much to learn from him, man. Inversions, and he taught me about voice leading. He always asked me, man, he said, don't show me the inversion. Tell me the voice leading. What is the melody that you're playing that inversion of the chord on? So I said this. He said, no, man, do me a favor. That chord is correct. It's the correct chord, but the inversion is not correct. So why don't you voice it with the fifth on top or with the root on top, and that kind of thing. So there was a lot to learn from him there. And of course, his sense of harmony, man, the way he can rearm any kind of melody, because of his jazz influence and his knowledge of jazz, it's just fabulous.
I think with him also, it's how he applies his knowledge, because I know people who have ton of, harmonic chops and, ability on the piano and everything, but how he's able to condense that knowledge into what the song actually needs. Because sometimes I've heard him use very simple, melodies or voicings, and you think like, I'm sure he was like more than this, but he doesn't always, want to show that. He'll keep something behind, and then when it's needed, it comes in like at the right moment. And
the thing with him is that with Loy is that the moment he puts his hands on the keyboard, the melody just flows. He channels melody.
Yeah.
He just starts playing. And very often what happens is that Shankar just jumps over to his side and hits the C key on the Mac so that it captures the recording. Because he's thinking, this guy will forget. He'll forget it in the next moment. So very often, not very often, practically every day Shankar does that. Grab that. It's lovely, man. Don't lose it,
He doesn't realize how cool he is.
Oh, he's fantastic. He's fantastic. And besides being a good musician and being one of the loveliest guys I've met, he's also such an intelligent guy, well-read.
Yeah.
We sit and chat for hours and hours about stuff, man. Especially when we're on a flight together and stuff, we're always talking about something, or he'll listen to something and then he'll record it onto this little slow down thing and saying, man, just listen to the way this trumpet players phrase this thing over a -7 flat 5 chord. And it's always, his mind is always working.
And I notice also, apart from music, another thing that ties the three of you together is the love for food, for good food.
Actually, not me so much.
No?
Not me so much, but your uncle and Shankar. My God, they're like
foodies.
Food freaks. Food freaks, man. Food freaks. Can you imagine? I know Loy and Shankar, Nashi Shankar being South Indian, loves South Indian food. Loy being who he is, I think he was a South Indian in his last birth.
Yeah.
And we go to Canada and these guys want to go and eat dosa and all. Like what? You know what I mean? I said, man, let's go and eat something good. No, man, we're going to eat dosa. Anyway, but these guys are total. Shankar is a chef.
Yeah.
He's a proper chef, and Loy just loves food. I like to eat good food, but I like kind of eat to live. I don't like live to eat.
Awesome. Okay, so apart from being a great guitar player, also a great songwriter. So I wanted to ask you, at what age did you realize you had a natural skill for that, and anything you did to develop it, or you just kept doing it?
No, actually, what happened was that, like I said, I wrote a couple of songs when I was with Crosswinds, but that was more about the riff, about writing a riff, like, that Sanap song. That was a riff, I came up with that riff, and basically the song developed around that. Sanjay and Jeet Das, who was the singer, they sang the melody out, and we got the song. But after that, when I went to America, studying music there, studying the styles of guitar players like Andy Summers, and getting a good knowledge of harmony and theory. First of all, it gave me a good base to songwrite on.
Right.
Even while I was in America, I didn't come up with any ideas for songs and stuff like that. Maybe an instrumental song here and there and whatnot, but nothing really. But when I came back with Ranjit, and when Ranjit and I started working together, I started using all these lovely chords, which were, I mean, not that they weren't used before, but at least in India, one didn't hear bands playing,
Yeah.
All these kind of extended chords and whatnot. And Ranjit automatically started singing on top of them, that man, with this chord. And I'd say you could sing these notes. And within doing that, I started coming out with little melodies myself.
Cool.
You come up with a chord progression and sing chords and melodies on top. Next thing you know, you've got a song happening, and you're songwriting. And it's a beautiful process once you learn, and you know that you've got that flair to do it.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was always using the guitar as a base for writing melodies on top of.
Yeah.
But very often, a lot of my songwriting happens when I'm not on the instrument.
Yeah.
Just singing to myself.
It happens in your head first, right? And then it.
Yeah. So when I'm working with Shankar and Loy, very often what will happen, I'll hear the kind of structure that's taking place there, and then I'll walk out of the studio with that structure and with the chords in my head. I'll be humming, walking up and down the corridor, walking up and corridor, and then I'd come up with a tune.
It's like it gets relegated to another area of your brain, which then processes it, and then it comes back into the conscious thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird.
I wish I could write good guitar. Instrumentals. I really haven't got into doing that much, and I want to do a bit of that.
Well, there's still time.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we go. What is your views on the importance of gear in players' overall impact?
Well, actually, that we are both gear freaks, and the thing is that I do believe it's good for you to start with, good gear. Have a nice guitar. If you can, I know it's sometimes difficult to afford and all, but if you can stretch it, at least get yourself a good guitar to start with. And and if you got it like an amplifier or a good processor or a set of pedals, and I do believe that the first thing to do is to get good tone. Is that you just have a guitar and an amp and a cable, and you should sound good there as well. And, like direct start off sounding great there. And then whatever you put in between just enhances the sound. So, I think good gear is important. I mean, you don't have to buy very expensive gear. It doesn't mean that if you're going to buy, you don't have to buy a custom shop Fender Strat. You can buy a Mexican Strat or even a Chinese guitar. But, choose one well and, make sure that you get something that's good. Don't randomly go and buy one, otherwise you'll only be disappointed with it, and it would affect your sound to some extent. But, I think most guitar players should work on first developing tone just with their hands, I grew up using minimum gear. I didn't have anything. I had two pedals and one little amp, but the thing is that you took the pedal and you hit your strings in a particular way. You wanted like a growling Marshall kind of sound, and I didn't know how to do it. I just had one MXR distortion plus pedal, and I found that if you hit the string with your side of your thumb and the pick, you got a bit of that mid bump that gave you, that Marshall-y kind of sound. So that's the way you got it, And then once you realize that the tone is there in your hands. Then whatever you put in between is just a little bit of dressing.
It just makes it louder.
To your root.
Yeah, it just makes it loud. It amplifies whatever you're putting in. So I remember when I was a kid, my dad and different older musicians, they always said you should start on acoustic first before you move on to electric. And I guess what they meant by that is you learn to extract a good sound. Though, I have to say the electric is almost like another instrument altogether, the way, because I know people who sound great on acoustic, but they don't really, it doesn't translate that well to electric. But I know what they had in mind. It's like without all the extra, stuff to make you sound good, you should sound good on just your instrument. So there's definitely something to be said. But we don't really bother about that, right? Just look at all this.
Yeah, I know. The thing is that I must admit, I did start with acoustic. I
Yeah.
had a Gibson Givson acoustic, which a friend of mine owned, and he gave me, and I bought a pickup for it. A company called Tasco, which I used to attach with tape because it didn't stay. There was no kind of thing on it which could attach to the side, so you had to tape it down. And I found my uncle's old Harman Kardon amp, the old valve amp, and I plugged in using two RCAs at the back of the amp, and it sounded very cool because it was instantly distorted.
Yeah.
There was no clean sound.
You're overloading
But
the amplifier. Yeah.
yeah, that was great fun, man. Playing a little bit of electric acoustic.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny how we like look back fondly at those days, but I don't really want to see any of that gear again. Is is
Yeah,
there
yeah.
is there
Well,
any gear you got rid of that you wish you had still kept?
Well, actually, there was one guitar which I sold, which was so stupid. I don't know what made me sell it, man. It was a 1976 Fender Telecaster Custom.
Oh wow.
The one with the one humbucker and one single coil.
Right.
And for some reason, I was not playing it, and I sold it off to Kalyan Barua, the guitar player, who of course now loves that guitar, and it just will never part with it as much as I ask him to sell it back to me. It's cool, man. It went to a good guy at
Yeah,
least.
obviously. Kalyan's one of the greats.
Yeah, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
I remember this amp I got from you, which I still have.
Yeah, somewhere I regret that also because you don't get those anymore, and it was a pretty cool sounding amp.
Yeah. It's the amp I use the most actually because I guess it's convenient having both the clean and drive in one. So
But I
yeah,
think the Sir Hedgehog was more my kind of amp actually.
yeah. I remember I told you like that's one amp you should look at getting at some point.
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about. I mean, before the COVID thing, I guess we were all working our asses off every single day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like, do you have any thoughts about like avoiding burnout in a profession like like music, where you have to actually deliver on very tight deadlines and stuff like that?
The thing is that you are going to burn out. There's no two ways about it.
Right.
I mean, it's not that you can avoid it. I think every creative person faces burnout at some stage. Whether you're a studio guitar player, or whether you're in terms of music, or whether you're a singer, or whether you're a composer, especially as a composer,
Right.
you hit burnout. But the thing is, at that time, you need to walk away from the instrument and from the project that you're doing. Not walk away means leave it and say I'm not going to do it, but walk away in for 10 minutes sometime. Just walk away. And it's happened to me sometimes when I've been at the studio, and sometimes you get caught into one kind of pattern and you can't break that pattern.
Yeah.
There's a certain timing or a certain way a melody should go. When you're not recording, you play the melody and it's perfect. But the moment that red button goes on, you play the wrong melody. Yeah. And then you get caught into a loop, So at that time, it's really good for you to walk away from the thing and then come back to it, and then you'd nail it.
Yeah.
With songwriting, when you hit a burnout, I do believe it's very good for you to, walk away and like listen to some music or watch a bit of TV or, something like that. Get your mind off the thing that you're working on and then get back into it. And, invariably you crack it there.
I think it goes back to some other part of your brain and it percolates over there. Okay, so a lot of the music that you've made, it's down to like the role of music in society. So we listen to it, during weddings, during occasions, and we also listen to it, while we are working on, whatever or something like that. Just have music playing in the background. Do you believe that music also can have a deeper impact on people, like almost like a therapeutic kind of role?
Well, actually, it definitely can, man. And I wouldn't want to say that about any particular genre of music. I mean, for the guy who goes to a heavy metal concert and headbangs and does the mosh pit stuff, he himself is getting his own kind of release there. So it is definitely, man. I mean, music, because it comes from an emotional space. To create music, you have to come from an emotional space, and it has to affect the person receiving the music in the same way.
Yeah.
I mean, it is, it sparks off something inside you. And most of the time, it sparks off happiness inside you, And sometimes you may actually compose music to particularly spark up a particular kind of emotion. Like you want people to feel sad for a particular thing, maybe there's been a disaster and you want people to step forward and help. You will work to target that emotion inside of them with your composition. And the thing is, it's basically the way you react to your song is almost exactly the way your listener will react to it.
Yeah.
Unless they're critics. but so it is definitely, there's a huge emotional message in music. And I mean, there are lots of people even creating like all this new age stuff for meditation and stuff like on which I do meditate a lot, and I find these random playlists on YouTube, which is like some music recorded at 432 hertz, or some other kind of thing, and it works, man. It feels great when you're listening to it at that time. So there is the bigger picture. I mean, music does affect you emotionally, and it's a bit of a thing that we musicians have, that we have to do in this world, is spread the happiness through it, and spread good emotion. The emotion could be sad or it could be happy, but spread good emotion through your music, and I think that is very effective.
Do you feel these moments at times, like when you're like really playing at your best, you feel like almost like you're a conduit and it just flows through you?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. There are times when I've done a gig and I've not remembered that section, like I may be playing a solo and I've completely got lost in that part. And then I heard the recording back and I just said, man, I've played stuff here which I've never played before, where did that come from, And that happens all the time. Man, music is a meditative thing. When you play a concert and when you're on stage, that's your meditation. You're not there. You become part of a whole, which is the music and the sound, and if you let ego or something come into it where you're singling yourself out from the rest of the music, you've got a problem, because people will catch on to it, or you at least, or your band members will catch on to it, that this guy's not really part of it.
It sounds out of place at that point. Have you ever had those moments where almost you felt like you're watching yourself from afar?
Yes, I have. I mean, very often. And with Shankar Ehsaan Loy, we've had a couple of miraculous experiences playing music, like healing and that kind of stuff. And it's unbelievable. It's really unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, you don't see, you only hear about these things happening till it actually happens to you. You say, my God, wow.
Yeah.
It's a bigger picture. There is a bigger picture, and and we are conduits of that kind of spiritualism, and we should really always welcome that.
Yeah. And also treat it with a fair amount of respect. I mean, I'm sure like the party music has its role. I mean, it's cool to let your hair down and just I mean, I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that, but there's times where you could also like not listen to a particular music when you're busy doing other things. What I mean, just because I remember there used to be times where like I would just only put on like a vinyl record or something, and I would just lie on the couch and listen to it with undivided attention. And I find like these days that there's less of that happening, so I kind of try and make like at least one moment of the week where I can just only listen. Now all my listening happens when I'm driving or something.
In fact, I do that very often when I go to bed, with the iPad. I carry the iPad and listen. Surprisingly, last night, for some reason before sleeping, I wanted to listen to Bryan Adams' Run to You, man. I just said, man, I want to listen to it because I love that guitar sound when he comes into the middle, That part. The sound is so lovely. I just wanted to hear that sound before I went to sleep, wait for that part. So I heard the song, I heard the guitar solo, that middle interlude, and then it comes into that part, and after that I put it off and I went to sleep.
Like people get cravings to eat a certain kind of food suddenly, randomly, and they just want to eat that. Have you ever had that urge to listen to like a part of a song, like where it just plays in your head and you're like, I have to listen to it right now, otherwise it's going to drive me nuts?
And which part that is very, very often, man, and it's happened to me many times with this one particular song, is Us and Them, the from Dark Side of the Moon, when the piano comes in with the echo, dun, 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 Do-da-dun, do-da-da-dun, da-da. Oh man, when Rick Wright plays that, I mean, he reminds me a lot of Loy. Because Loy plays the same way, randomly. He plays randomly, and that part, it's just a magical part. I do that very often. I listen to that part of the song. I just look forward to listening to that part of the song.
Awesome. And are there like bits of songs that like without fail will give you goosebumps no matter how many times you listen to it?
Yeah, man. There's many. In fact, there's a lot of there's a classical piece, a piece called Concierto de Aranjuez, which is like the Spanish composer called Joaquin Rodrigo. The adagio is one of the most famous adagios in classical music. It's played on nylon string guitar, and there's this part where it peaks towards the end. It goes into this when the entire orchestra comes in. There's once when I was going by cab. I remember it was when I used to work with Louis Banks. I was going by taxi and I had my Walkman on at that time. We had a Walkman, and I was listening to this part, and this part of the song came on, and I started crying, man. I started crying, and the taxi driver said, "Saab, aap theek ho? Kya ho gaya?" I said, "No, no, no, no. I'm just listening to some music, and it's like overcome me."
Awesome.
Man, I mean, there's so many things. When I heard David Gilmour the first time when he played the opening of "Wish You Were Here," I mean, I was like wiping the tears. I just said, "Oh God!" I mean, that's magic, there.
So over your entire career, I'm sure you've been like adept at many different genres of music. I mean, I've heard like your taste is like one of the most wide-ranging I've heard. Are there any genres you're still like just getting into? Anything you're just discovering?
Actually, well, right now I think lockdown has helped me. I'm working on a bit of bebop. I'm finding it very difficult. I'm finding it very difficult because it's a whole thought process. There's a lot of time that you have to dedicate towards. But I want to learn jazz to make my blues playing a little more interesting.
Right, just spice it up a bit, yeah.
To spice it up a bit, and maybe step out of the comfort zone of just playing over 12 bars, and maybe even help in songwriting to write stuff that's a little different from just regular 12-bar blues. Because I mean, 12-bar blues is great, but it's also been done to like everybody does 12-bar blues. And if I write something, I'd like to write something which is a little more interesting, maybe harmonically, maybe melodically. So that is something that I've been working out a few standards and that kind of thing. I cannot play all the two-handed stuff. I mean, I cannot play any Eddie Van Halen studio solo. I've never been able to play that. So I tried to attempt it the other day. I turned the gain up and all that, and I just couldn't do it. So I said, I'm going to let that rest. But hey, it's great to listen to. I'm great to listen to and get charged up with.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you can be influenced by that stuff subconsciously. Maybe like a certain groove or something like that comes into it. You don't have to be able to replicate it or anything. I've learned so much by just osmosis. By just like by absorbing it.
Yeah, that's the way. Yeah, that's the way it. I mean, I've heard the other day I was talking to a guitar player from the New England Conservatory. So I was asking, do you actually sit and transcribe like the solo, like note for note, Baba? He said, no, man. All I do is listen to that song over and over again till I can, imbibe that stuff into my system.
Yeah.
And then when I start playing, some little snippets of that will come into my playing, but I'm playing it wrong. I'm not playing it right, but playing it wrong, I made it my own.
Exactly. In failing to replicate, exactly, you come up with something new.
Yeah, and that's what I realized that I've been doing all this while. I've never really had this patience to sit and work out a guitar solo. I mean, like maybe the last guitar solo that I worked out was
from time,
which must have been, I don't know how many years ago. But now I may work out like a little 4-bar phrase, and invariably what I'll do is I'll take that 4-bar phrase and there may be parts of it which I don't like.
Okay.
I'll maybe keep 1 bar and then play around it and create my own phrase. So that, that kind of helps a lot. It gives it a different, interesting kind. See, the thing is that you can never sound like other guitar players or even think like them,
Yeah.
You have to think like yourself. And that is the best way to do it.
Yeah. I mean, there are some players it's kind of easier for me to get into their headspace because of like I may have listened to music that they have listened to, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I kind of know where they're going with certain things. But there are some guys like you don't even like start to imagine how they even think, let alone play. Yeah, so it's like, how did you
Yeah,
even
man.
like
There's some.
think about that?
Yeah,
But
this.
that's just for you to appreciate and not to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's some guitar players who are predictable, but that's become like their style that you hear it and you know that, like when you hear Eric Johnson, you know that pentatonic in riff and fourths is going to come,
Yeah.
that is going to come.
It's
But that is him.
it's one of his things that he does. Even like Steve Moss, there's a certain way he does that alternate picking thing. You know, it's going,
Yeah.
that kind of a run. It's like it's uniquely him. Um,
Yeah.
okay, here's an interesting question. Like, if you had like no limits, your dream band to record your solo album, who would you put together?
Good question. Dream band. I would like Joey DiFrancesco playing organ.
That's a great choice. Yeah.
I'd love Omar Hakim playing drums. He's one of my favorite drummers. I just love his playing. He's kind of disappeared from the scene, and I met him at NAMM, and when I told him, "Where are you?" He's one of like the finest. And I'd like Roscoe Beck to
Oh
play
yeah.
bass. He's like the perfect bass player for anything that's blues and funk and that kind of thing.
But his sense of
You know,
harmony is incredible because sometimes he's like playing chords and stuff. Like you don't really need another in harmony section because he's got that covered.
and Joey DiFrancesco, man. I mean, I've heard him a couple of times, and man, what a player! What a player, man.
Yeah. He used to play with Miles at some point, didn't he?
Yeah. He's played with Miles. He's played with McLaughlin. He's played with a lot of guys, man.
Awesome. So I hope you get to put that dream band together. It's
But the thing is that now, if you record something good and send it to them, and you're willing to pay them,
yeah,
they'll happily play for you, man.
Yeah.
They'll happily, because I mean it's work, yeah.
totally. But there's
So
something
maybe one of
something
you
unique
put
about
out-
being in the same room with them and on playing together. Just bouncing off each other. There's a certain energy that happens, which is hard to
Yeah.
replicate. But yeah, I hope that happens at some. Just put
I
it out
hope it happens too.
put it out into the universe
Yeah.
and let it just come back to you.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Okay, so thank you so much for doing this. It's been a blast. As the last part of this interview, I felt it's only fair I let you turn the tables and ask me a question.
Okay. Let me ask you. Actually, this will be interesting. I'm going to ask you the same question you asked me. What would be your dream band? It would be very interesting to know that.
Okay, so living or dead?
No, living, dead, whatever. Because
Doesn't
your
matter.
music is very eclectic. It's very eclectic. You go through all kinds of genres.
Yeah. I'd probably say either John Bonham or Mitch Mitchell on drums.
Okay, beautiful.
Either John Deacon or John Paul Jones on bass.
Okay.
And Chal, to keep it in the family, let's get Loy on keys.
Of course.
And plus let him produce the proceedings. I mean, at least the 1 out of 3 is attainable.
Yeah. Of course.
And then also I'd like to, get all my favorite guitar players from the country to chip in, a little bit
Yeah.
here and a little bit there. It's almost like casting. I think I'll do that at some point, I'm going to do
You should, man. You should.
just a guitar album with all my friends to let them. I'll just play some rhythm and let them play all the solos.
Yeah, that'd be cool, man. That'd be cool. Actually, there's so many in India. There's so many good players now, man. And especially on a little WhatsApp group. There's such lovely guys, man.
Yeah.
Did you hear the new guy I added called Otanga, the guy from Nagaland?
Oh no, I must check him out. I've been a little
Check
bit
him out, man.
slack
Oh
with that.
man, he's so funky. He's so funky and a lovely player, man.
Awesome. Anyway, thank you for doing this, man. It's been an absolute pleasure and long overdue. And let's see if people want to ask some more questions in the comments. Maybe we can do a part 2
Yeah.
or an
Why
add-on
not?
to this interview.
Why not, man?
It's
So I
been-
hope you get like 1 million subscribers soon.
Well, with you being there, I'm sure I'll get at least close to that.
Cool, man. Cool.
Thanks, buddy.
Okay, buddy. Take care, man. Bye.